Hi everybody, welcome to science class. The last couple of days I've asked you to do some assignments on microscopes or learn a little bit about microscopes, and we kind of all come into class knowing different amounts. Some of us have a lot of knowledge on microscopes, some of us have used them before and kind of know how they work, and some of us have never seen one in real life and never used one, which is totally fine. So on Wednesday when I was gone, you were supposed to watch that little 10-minute video clip about microscopes. It went through the history a little bit, kind of who invented it or which scientists kind of came to invent the microscope and what they were able to look at. And then it kind of turned into where the microscope has been and where it is now and what we can see. And then yesterday, what you were supposed to do is you were supposed to go through that slideshow and then go to that virtual online website where you were supposed to kind of go through and test the microscope and look at different slides and use the different adjustment knobs. Again, I know it's not as good as it normally would be in real life, but that's all we got right now. And again, my prayer and my hope is that at some point this year, we will actually be back in the classroom and you can use one for yourself. But the whole purpose of a microscope is to see things that we normally can't see with just our eyes. So it's to zoom in on things, either everyday things or things that, like bacteria and protists and things that live in water that we normally can't see, which leads us into what we're talking about today is cells. So this is a new unit for trimester 2. And what I'm going to do today is just kind of introduce you to just some of the main general basic concepts of this unit. We're going to review a little bit of vocabulary from Diversity of Life, and I'm just going to kind of walk you through some of the introductory materials to this unit, and then next week we'll go a little bit farther and more in depth. So here we go. Cells. These are terms that you have learned before, and it's important that you remember them or relearn them for this unit. So again, an autotroph is an organism that can make its own food using the sunlight for energy. So a lot of times we think of plants as autotrophs. A heterotroph is an organism that cannot do this, and it has to find, has to eat, has to hunt, it has to absorb its energy from somewhere else. It can't do it on its own. A unicellular organism is an organism that's made of one cell. I think uni is one. A eukaryote is an organism that has a nucleus inside of its cell or cells. So that nucleus, again, controls the cell. All that genetic material is kind of compacted into a little area. Prokaryotes do not have a nucleus. They still have genetic material, but it's kind of scattered throughout the cell. And then multicellular. Most kids know this at this point. Multi means many, so an organism that's made many cells. So hopefully some of those terms you remember a little bit. So again, prokaryotes, usually these are found in organisms that are very simple, not very complex, like archaea and bacteria. That one cell does the job of like everything, which means that they are not specialized. So like in a bacteria, you're not going to find a whole bunch of cells. You're not going to find eyes and a heart and a stomach, because that takes multiple cells to build those different organs. Eukaryotes, again, have a nucleus in their cell or cells. A lot of times we find these in multicellular organisms, so animals, plants, fungus, and some protists, or all protists, have a nucleus in each one of their cells. And again, they can be specialized, meaning those different organisms can have cells that are grouped together that create other functions, or they have cells that have certain jobs or tasks. Moving right along here. An autotroph, again, gets its energy from the sun, so plants, and there are a couple types of protists that do this. Heterotrophs, again, cannot make their own food, like you and I. We can't just sit out in the sun and just like absorb energy, which I wish we could sometimes. We can't do that, so we have to eat or consume or absorb nutrients. Cells are the basic unit of life. Sometimes we call them the building blocks of life. And again, we've talked about these before. In our Living Things Diversity of Life unit, we talked about the characteristics of living things. Mr. Al Grummo, do you remember that? Made of cells, reproduces, grows and develops. You remember. So all living things have to be made of one or more cells. Cells come in all different shapes and sizes. We've got red blood cells, we've got white blood cells. Bacteria cells, again, can also come in different shapes. Not all bacteria cells look like this. This is what onion cells look like, nerve cells, and your lovely little sperm cell right there. So cells come in all different shapes and sizes. And inside of a cell are these tiny little structures called organelles. So think of like your body, right? Your body has organs inside of it. A cell has little organelles, little baby organs inside of it, little tiny structures or small parts that are found inside. And each of these small parts have a specific function or job, kind of like your organs do, right? So, which that's what it says right there. So like your heart has a specific function, your brain does a certain thing, your lungs do certain things. There's little tiny parts inside of the cell that also have certain functions. The cell theory is something that you kind of should know about. Cell theory comes in 3 different pieces. Again, we already know the first one. All living things are made of cells. Cells carry out all of the functions needed to support life, and cells come from other living cells. Now, some of those things seem very basic, right? But a long time ago, like for example, this one, cells come from other living cells. People didn't 100% know that. So yeah, that's the cell theory. So for example, polar bear is a multicellular organism, meaning it has cells in it. Fat cells, which is the type of cell that's found in the animal, provide energy and insulation, so kind of carrying out number 2 there. And each polar bear cub began as a single cell. So in order to create little baby cute polar bear cub, 2 other polar bears had to, and it had to join genetic material to create that cute little baby polar bear cub. So baby polar bear came from mommy polar bear. All right, you guys, I think that's where I'm going to stop for today. Next week, we are going to get into the differences between plant and animal cells. Honestly, it's like the one thing, if you leave my class knowing the difference between plant and animal cells, I will consider myself and my teaching in 2020-2021 school year kind of a success. So we're going to talk about that next week. I got to tell you guys too, I need you to know that trimester 2 might be a little bit more challenging than trimester 1, because I don't think a lot of you have learned about cells. I don't think a lot of you have learned about the different cell parts and organelles and all the little, a lot of this is the first time kids ever learn about cell parts. Now, if you were at a different school, maybe in a different district, or maybe you were homeschooled, I don't know, maybe this is a little bit of a repeat. But for most kids, it requires a little bit more, I wouldn't necessarily say studying, but attention and engagement in order to do well on this stuff, because it can go kind of over your head a little bit just because it is brand new. So next week, when we officially start trimester 2, I need you to make sure that when I'm doing these videos, you're actually listening to me and following along and trying your best to pay attention. That's all I've got for you today. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I am excited to start trimester 2 with you guys. Have a good day. Bye.